The mailbox door was hard for my fingers to reach. The arthritis was making its presence felt especially strongly in these October days. Dr. Harrison was particularly verbose today, telling me about the next change in my heart medication, but I listened half-heartedly. At 70, you get used to doctors saying more than they should and doing less than they should. As I walked up the steps to the porch of my house on Maple Street, I turned the key in the lock with relief. A visit to the cardiologist was always exhausting, not so much physically, but mentally. Another reminder of age, of the need to take care of yourself, of at your age, Mrs. Kettleborn, as if I didn't know how old I was myself. 37 years in a city hospital, and now doctors half my age are lecturing me about health. Dropping my shoes in the hallway, I walked to the kitchen and put the kettle on. This simple procedure always helped me calm down after doctor's appointments. As the water boiled, I went over the doctor's recommendations in my head. Less salt, more movement, taking pills regularly. All the same things he'd said 6 months ago. Taking a cup of steaming tea, I walked to the living room and glanced at the secretary by the window. Something was wrong. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but a feeling of unease rose up somewhere in my chest, making my heart beat faster than usual. Could it be the effect of the new pills, or just fatigue after a long day? Moving closer, I saw that the top drawer of the secretary was ajar. That's odd. I always closed it carefully, checking it twice. It was where I kept my most important documents and family valuables. I had inherited it from my mother, and I treated it with special trepidation. Everything in it had its place. Every document was exactly where it was supposed to be. My hand reached for the handle of the drawer, and it pulled out with a quiet creak. The first thing that caught her eye was the absence of the small velvet case that usually lay in the far corner, covered with old letters from her late husband. The jewelry case was gone. At first, I thought I had misplaced it. Maybe I'd moved it to another drawer after the last general cleaning. I frantically rummaged through all the compartments of the secretary, carefully pulling out folders of documents, old photographs, and bundles of letters. Then she rushed to the bedroom dresser, shaking out every shelf. She looked in the jewelry box on the dressing table, where she kept her everyday jewelry. The emerald earrings and bracelet I'd inherited from my mother, which I'd cherished for 30 years, seemed to have vanished into thin air. My legs felt like cotton. I sank into the chair by the window, the same one where I liked to read in the evenings by the light of the desk lamp, and tried to concentrate. Panic was a bad counselor, and at my age, it was dangerous to my health. I had to think logically. When was the last time I'd seen the case? The day before yesterday, when I pulled out my insurance papers for my doctor's appointment. It was in its place in the far corner of the top drawer, where it always was. I'd even opened it then to make sure the jewelry was still there. The emeralds glimmered in the semi-darkness of the room, reminding me of my mom, who wore them to all the important family events. A break-in? But the front door was locked with two locks, as always. The windows were closed, too, and some still had old latches that creaked at the slightest movement. There was no sign of intrusion that I could see. And what kind of thief takes only jewelry without even touching the cash in the same drawer, the $200 I always kept for emergencies? I got up and walked through the house, scrutinizing every room. Everything was in its place. The TV, the computer Pierce had given me 3 years ago, the silver picture frames, even the change on the kitchen table. Nothing had been touched. It would make for an odd thief to take just one item and get away with it. The thought I'd been chasing away for the past half hour slowly made its way into my mind like an annoying headache. Who else knew the jewelry existed? Who else had seen where I kept them? And most importantly, who else had keys to the house? Pierce, my only son. I'd given him spare keys 2 years ago, after I'd fallen in the bathtub and lay there for hours unable to get up. It seemed like a sensible precaution at the time. In case of emergencies, I told him, in case something happens and you can't get through. He was reluctant at the time, saying he didn't want to pry into my private life, but I insisted. Now those keys seemed like the biggest mistake of my life. But could my own son really? No, that's absurd. Pierce was never a selfish child. Yes, after marrying Lucia, he changed, became more detached, but stealing family valuables? That's impossible. Although he did seem tense lately. He came by to check on me last week, and I noticed he was thinner than usual, dark circles under his eyes. He was complaining about problems at the factory, that they might cut jobs. Lucia looked worried too when they came to my birthday party in September. She kept whispering something in his ear, and he nodded guiltily. The phone felt unexpectedly heavy when I picked it up. I'd known Pierce's number by heart for 18 years, ever since he'd moved out of my apartment. At the time, I'd thought he was leaving my parents' house too soon, but now I realized I should have let him go even sooner. Hello? My son's voice seemed fuzzy, indistinct. The words came out a little slower than usual. Pierce, it's Mom. I need to talk to you. Mom? Uh, what's wrong? There was something wary in his tone, like a man who knows he's done something wrong but hopes it hasn't been discovered. Were you at my house today? The pause dragged on, too long for an innocent man. A television could be heard in the background, some kind of sports program judging by the commentary. No, Mom. Why, is something wrong? Lies. I could hear the lie in his voice as clearly as I could hear the alcohol. You can't fool a mother's heart. Pierce, my mom's jewelry is missing. Emerald earrings and a bracelet from the secretary. Another pause. In the background, there was the sound of a can being opened. Obviously beer. Look, Mom. He paused, and I heard him swallow. It's, I took this. It was like the world around me stopped. It's one thing to suspect, but it's another to hear a confession from the mouth of my own child. The same child I'd raised alone after Gerald died, the one I'd read bedtime stories to, taken to doctor's appointments and school events. You took my jewelry? I struggled to say the words, feeling the lump in my throat. It wasn't forever. It's just temporary. We have a situation here. We have a situation. We'll get them back, honestly. I'm not your enemy. What situation? Pierce, those were my mom's earrings. Grandma wore them to her wedding. I've been saving them for 30 years. Mom, don't yell. Lucia said it's kind of a family thing, and we didn't sell them. We just pawned them at the pawn shop. There was a noise in the phone, a woman's voice in the background. Lucia. Of course it was her idea. I'd always suspected she had her eye on my jewelry, too often looking at them when she came to visit, too detailed about their history. Bale, where did you take it? Morgan's on Oak Street. Mom, we'll pick them up tomorrow, or the day after that. You know, the plant's paychecks are late, and we've got a mortgage, bills piling up. Pierce, are you drunk? No, I'm not. Just a couple beers. After work, we had some guys over. Mom, don't worry. It'll be fine. We'll get the money. We'll buy it back right away. Give it back right away. Right now. Mom, it's late. The pawn shops are closed, and there's no money yet. I'll go tomorrow morning. As soon as I get my paycheck, I'll get it. Honestly. Kid's word. A boy's word. That's what he used to say when he was a kid and apologized for something. It sounded cute then. Now it's mocking. I hung up without saying goodbye. My hands were shaking with rage and frustration. My son, my only child, the one I'd raised without a father, working double shifts so he wouldn't need anything, who I bought the best clothes for, paid for classes and clubs, who had keys to my house in case of emergencies. He stole from me. But the worst part was how easily he did it. He came in when I wasn't home, went into the living room, opened the secretary, took what he thought was family property, and didn't even think to ask permission. And now he said it was on loan, that he would take it back tomorrow, as if it were a trinket and not jewelry that had been passed down in our family for generations. In the morning, I woke up with a heavy head and a bitter taste in my mouth. I tossed and turned all night, unable to find peace, and when I finally fell asleep in the morning, I had nightmares. My mother held out emerald earrings to me, but they fell apart in the sand between my fingers. I woke up screaming. I got up at 7:30, as usual, but the usual morning routine, shower, breakfast, watching the news, seemed mechanical. My thoughts revolved around one thing: my son had stolen from me. Whether he called it a loan or a bailout, the point didn't change. He took my things without asking when I wasn't home. By 9 a.m., I couldn't stay home. I needed to see Pierce with sober eyes, have a serious talk with him. Maybe he was too drunk last night to realize the gravity of the situation. Maybe in the morning he'd come to his senses and go to the pawn shop himself. Pierce and Lucia's house was 20 minutes from mine, in a new neighborhood where all the houses looked the same: neat lawns, identical fences, identical mailboxes. When they bought this house 3 years ago, I wondered how they had enough money for a down payment. A locksmith's salary wasn't that great, and Lucia wasn't working. But I didn't ask too many questions at the time. I was glad my son was getting his life together. Parked outside their house, I sat in the car for a few minutes, gathering my courage. Pierce's tattered car was in the driveway, which meant he was home. Strange, he was usually at work by this time. Maybe he took some time off. Or had he really been downsized? Walking up to the front door, I rang the bell. No one opened the door for a long time, even though there was the sound of television coming from the house. Finally, the door opened, and Lucia's face appeared through the crack. Her hair was disheveled, her robe open, and she looked like she'd just woken up. Rosemary? She clearly wasn't expecting me. Why? I mean, good morning. What's up? I need to talk to Pierce. I need to talk to you, too. Lucia paused, clearly considering whether to let me in, but then she stepped aside. Come on in. We're just, not quite awake yet. The house looked a mess inside. There were empty beer cans on the coffee table in the living room, an ashtray full of cigarette butts, and newspapers and magazines lying around. It smelled of stale tobacco smoke and something sour. Pierce was lying on the sofa, covered with a plaid, eyes red, stubble of several days, a look of utter devastation. Mom? He struggled to get up on his elbow. What are you doing up so early? What time is it? 10:30. Aren't you at work? It's my day off. He avoided looking me in the eye. I took the day off. Pierce, I need my jewelry, now. He sighed heavily and sat on the couch, rubbing his temples. Mom, I explained yesterday. We'll buy them back. It just takes a little time. How much time? How much money? Pierce glanced at Lucia, who was standing in the kitchen doorway with her arms crossed over her chest. She shook her head almost imperceptibly. Well, there's $300, and the interest adds up. $300? I couldn't believe my ears. For jewelry that cost at least $2,000? Lucia came out of the kitchen and sat in the chair across from the couch. She had the expression on her face of someone preparing for an unpleasant conversation. Rosemary, she began in the tone one uses to explain something to a child. We don't mean to upset you, but our situation is really difficult. Pierce could be fired, the mortgage is up, the bills are piling up, and this jewelry was just sitting there anyway. Just lying around, I could feel the rage boiling up inside of me. It's a memory of my mother. Well, yes, a memory, Lucia shrugged. But what good is a memory if we end up on the street? Pierce is your only child. He would have gotten the jewelry anyway, just a little ahead of schedule. The audacity of those words just struck me. She was talking about my jewelry like she already owned it. Lucia, it's my jewelry, and it's up to me to decide what to do with it. Mom, don't yell at Lucia, Pierce suddenly interjected. She's right. We do have a problem, and you live alone in a big house. You have a pension, health insurance. You think I should pay for your problems with my family heirlooms? No, you don't. He raised his voice, and I could hear the irritation in his tone. Just helping, like family. I thought you always said family was the most important thing. Help? But I wasn't even asked. You just took it and stole it. Not stealing, borrowing. Lucia intervened. I don't know what all the fuss is about. It's family jewelry, and we're your family. I looked at both of them. The son, who was avoiding my gaze and fidgeting nervously with the edge of the plaid, and his wife, who was looking at me with ill-concealed irritation. When had Pierce become such a stranger? When did he stop being my son and become this woman's husband? Okay, I said as calmly as I could. So the jewelry's at the pawn shop. Morgan's on Oak Street. When are you going to redeem it? Pierce and Lucia exchanged glances again. Well, as soon as the money comes in, the son murmured. When the money comes? I don't know. The situation at the factory is unclear. Maybe in a month, maybe in 2 months. 2 months? I couldn't help myself. What happens if you don't buy them back in time? Well, then Morgan will sell them, Lucia said as casually as if she were talking about old newspapers. Sell them? Mom's earrings? Rosemary, don't be hysterical. Lucia got up from her chair. They're just jewelry. They're just tin and stones. I don't know what all the drama is about. Tin and stones? I got up too. It was my father's gift to my mother for our 20th wedding anniversary. My mom only wore them on special occasions. This is our family history. Your history won't help us keep the house, Lucia said coldly. The jewelry will. If you're so worried, you can go to Morgan and buy them yourself. I looked at her stunned. Was she seriously suggesting that I buy back my own jewelry? You mean you want me to pay for something you stole from me? We didn't steal, Pierce exploded. Mom, enough already. We took what's still ours. You're not forever. Sooner or later, I'm gonna get everything you own. And we need help now, not after your funeral. Those words hurt more than a physical slap. My son, my only child, had just told me to my face that he was waiting for me to die so he could inherit, and that he's ready to take that inheritance now, without asking. Pierce, I felt my voice shaking. Do you realize what you're saying? I'm telling the truth. He got up from the couch, staggered. I guess he hadn't quite sobered up yet. You live alone, you have enough money, and we're struggling with the mortgage. And instead of helping us, you're making a fuss over some old jewelry. Some old jewelry? Your great-grandmother wore those earrings. Your grandmother. I wanted to give them to my granddaughter to be. What granddaughter? Lucia snorted. There are no plans for children, so your family traditions are finished. I felt like I was suffocating. The room began to swim before my eyes. These people hadn't just stolen my jewelry, they'd trampled all of our family's history, all of our memories, all of our traditions. So, you've already sold them? I struggled to say it. Lucia and Pierce looked at each other again. There was too much understanding in that look. Not exactly, Pierce said carefully. I mean, Morgan appraised them, and we got the bail money. What do you mean, not exactly? Rosemary. Lucia sat back in her chair and folded her hands in her lap. We sold them to a jeweler on Center Street. We needed the money urgently, and the pawn shop offered too little. The world stopped. For a second, another, a third. I stood in the middle of the living room and couldn't believe what I was hearing. Sold? I whispered again. Yeah, what's the big deal? Lucia spoke as if she were selling an old refrigerator. We made good money. Pierce paid off his debts. I bought something for myself. Everybody's happy. You bought yourself something? With the money from my jewelry? Why can't I? I'm Pierce's wife, so it's family jewelry. I'm entitled. I looked at this woman, at her brazen face, at the new gold earrings in her ears, at the expensive watch on her wrist, and realized that I was looking at a complete stranger, a man who thinks he's entitled to my property simply because he married my son. Pierce, I turned to my son. Do you realize what happened? Your wife sold your great-grandmother's jewelry and bought herself jewelry with the money. Mom, why are you making such a big deal out of this? He waved his hand. Lucia's right. We're family, we share the money. And besides, you don't have anyone else to leave it to anyway. No one else? I felt something inside me break completely. What about the museum? What about a charity? What about just selling it and spending the money on yourself? On myself? Pierce laughed, but it was an evil laugh. Mom, you're getting greedy. I never used to be. What, you don't feel bad about helping your son? Greedy? I felt my voice grow quieter, colder. I feel sorry for that boy who would never take someone else's without asking. The boy who respected family tradition. The boy who loved his mother. Enough melodrama, Lucia interjected. The money's spent, the jewelry's gone, hysterics won't help. It's better to say thank you for helping your son in his time of need. Thank you? I looked at her, then at Pierce, who nodded in agreement. Thank you for what? For stealing my mother's memory? For selling a family heirloom? For not even considering apologizing? What's there to apologize for? Pierce was getting angry. For exercising your right? For taking something that's still mine? Yours? I felt like I was gonna scream. Since when did my stuff become yours? Since you're my mother, he yelled, and everything of yours is going to be mine sooner or later. And if you don't realize that, you're just a greedy old woman. A greedy old woman. My son called me a greedy old woman for not wanting to give him my stuff. I took my purse and headed for the exit. There was nothing else for me to do here. Mom, where are you going? Pierce suddenly freaked out. Don't go like that. Let's have a normal conversation. I turned around on the doorstep. Talk about what, Pierce? That you stole from me and you think it's okay? About your wife spending money from the sale of my family jewels on her own jewelry? About what? Well, we're family. We can work it out. Work it out? Will you give me back my mom's earrings? He didn't say a word, staring at the floor. Then there's nothing to talk about. I left the house and got in the car. My hands were shaking so badly I couldn't start the engine. I sat and stared at the house, where my son lived with a woman who considered my property hers, where my own child was calling me a greedy old woman for not wanting to give him all my possessions in my lifetime. The jewelry is gone forever. There is no way to get them back, no way to buy them back, no way to restore them. The story of our family ended in a fence on Center Street, where some merchant would melt my mother's emeralds into faceless jewelry for strangers. The drive home passed like a blur. I drove slowly, stopping at every stoplight longer than necessary, as if delaying the moment of returning to an empty house. Scraps of today's conversation were running through my head. Greedy old woman, iron and pebbles, still ours. Each word resonated with a pain somewhere in my chest. Parking outside the house, I sat behind the wheel for a few minutes, staring at the familiar windows. 40 years ago, Gerald and I had bought this house when Pierce was only 3. It seemed like a palace to us then. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a spacious living room with a fireplace. We dreamed of growing old here, of grandchildren coming here, of family traditions being passed on to the next generation. There will be no grandchildren. Lucia made that clear today, and the family tradition ended at the jewelry store on Center Street. When I entered the house, I went straight to the living room and opened the very drawer of the secretary. The empty space where the velvet case lay seemed huge. I ran my fingers along the bottom of the drawer as if hoping to find something missing, but there was only dust. I pulled out an old photograph that had always been under the case. Mom on her silver wedding day, 50 years ago. She's sitting next to Dad on the couch in our old house, and she's wearing those same emerald earrings. How they sparkled in the flashlight. Dad bought them in '47, 2 years after the war, spending almost his entire bonus on them. You deserve the best, he told Mom then. Mom wore those earrings only on special occasions. Dad's birthday, their wedding anniversary, my graduation, my wedding, Pierce's birth. This isn't everyday jewelry, Rosemary, she said. These are jewelry for memorable moments. She taught me to cherish family items, to understand their value not in money but in history. When my mom died 8 years ago, she specifically called me to her house the week before she died and solemnly handed me the case. This is yours now, daughter, and then you can pass it on to your granddaughter, God willing, or a great-granddaughter. Let there be something permanent in our family that connects generations. I promised her then that I would keep the jewelry safe. I promised her it would stay in the family. And what happened? My own son sold them for debt without even asking permission, and his wife bought herself new jewelry with the money and thinks it's okay. I sat down at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, which had gone cold while I was looking at the photograph. Outside the window, Mrs. Palmer, a neighbor, was watering the flowers in her garden. She's 82, but she tends to her flower beds every day. Recently, she told me how her granddaughter helps her pick out seeds for spring planting. Her granddaughter calls every week, inquiring about her health, planning to come for a month in the summer. But my son considers me a burden and is waiting for me to die so he can inherit. When did it start? When Pierce stopped being my loving son and turned into a stranger who only sees me as a source of money? I guess that all changed when I met Lucia. Before that, he called regularly to check on me, to see how I was doing. We had dinner together on Sundays, discussed his work and plans for the future. He never asked for money, never complained about difficulties. Lucia came into his life 4 years ago. They met in a bar, where Pierce occasionally went after work with his colleagues. She worked there as a barmaid, and he immediately fell in love. Beautiful, bright, a good listener. At first, it seemed that she had a good influence on her son. He began to look after himself, bought new clothes, even quit smoking. But gradually, something began to change. Pierce began to call less often, even less often come to visit. And when he did, it was with Lucia, and the conversations became strained. She was always whispering something in his ear, and he nodded guiltily. Then there was their wedding 3 years ago. A modest ceremony to which only the closest people were invited. Lucia had insisted on not spending a lot of money on the celebration. We'd better put it aside for the house, she said. Wise, I thought at the time. Practical girl, knows how to plan a family budget. And 6 months later, they announced the purchase of a house. I was surprised. Where did they get the money for the down payment? The salary of a locksmith is not so big, and Lucia by that time was no longer working. They saved up, Pierce replied briefly to my questions. I didn't insist then. I didn't want to pry into their personal affairs. Now I realize I should have asked. I should have asked for details. Maybe even then Lucia was already planning how to use my assets to solve their problems. I remembered the first time Pierce had asked me for a loan a year ago. A small amount, $300 to fix my car. I gave it to him without question, but he never paid it back. Then there were more requests. For Lucia's medication, for urgent roof repairs. Small amounts each time, each time on loan, but the money was never returned. I thought it was a temporary hardship, that my son was embarrassed to ask his mother for help, so he called the gifts debts. I thought I was helping him keep his pride. Turns out I was just teaching him that my money is his money. And then today, Lucia bluntly said, "These are family jewels, and we're your family." To her, there is no difference between my property and their property. In her mind, everything of mine is automatically theirs. I got up and walked through the house, looking at things with new eyes. The antique set I'd gotten from my grandmother, the paintings that Gerald and I bought when we traveled, his collection of history books, my sewing table where I sewed Pierce's clothes for 40 years, the silver candlesticks I gave him as a wedding gift. Do Pierce and Lucia look at all this and see their future inheritance? Is every visit here an inventory of the property they'll inherit when I die? "You don't have anyone else to leave them to anyway," Pierce said today. So he's already done the math, the planning. In his mind, I'm obliged to leave him all my property simply because I'm his mother. But do I? Who says children are automatically entitled to their parents' property? Especially children who disrespect their parents, who steal family heirlooms and call it a right. Went back to the living room and opened the secretary again. Took out a folder of bank documents and spread them out on the table. Here are the current account statements. Here's the savings account. Here's the investment portfolio. And here are the automatic money transfer documents. I stared at these papers, not immediately realizing what I was seeing. Automatic transfer in the amount of $1,200 per month to First National Morgan's Bank. Credit account number, a number that sounded familiar. I picked up my cell phone and dialed the bank number that was on the paperwork. I waited for the operator to connect. "Hello, I am interested in an automatic transfer from my account. Can you confirm which account the money is being transferred to?" "Of course, Mrs. Kettleborn. Just one thing. The transfer is to a mortgage account at 12 Oak Street. The borrower is Mr. Pierce Kettleborn. The world is spinning. I'm transferring the money to Pierce's mortgage, $1,200 every month. How long has this been going on? Can you please tell me how long this automatic transfer has been in effect?" January 2nd, 2020. That's 5 years and 10 months. 5 years and 10 months. I've been paying my son's mortgage for almost 6 years, $70,000, maybe more. What's the total amount of the mortgage? The original loan amount was $180,000. At this point, the balance owed is $42,000. So I've already paid over $130,000, almost the entire mortgage, and Pierce didn't even tell me about it. In fact, today he was complaining about his mortgage problems as if he was paying it himself. Tell me, who set up this automatic transfer? According to our records, the transfer was set up by you personally, Mrs. Kettleborn. You came to the Main Street branch in January 2020. I tried to remember. January 2024. Yes, I remember. Pierce asked me to help him temporarily with his mortgage, said they were having trouble with their jobs, that things would pick up in a few months. Asked me to do the transfer for a couple of months until things stabilized. And I, stupid me, I believed him. I thought I was helping my son through temporary difficulties. And now I've been paying for their house for almost 6 years, and they think it's okay. Is there any way to undo this automatic transfer? Sure. You can cancel it at any time. Would you like to do it right now over the phone, or would you prefer to come into the branch? Right now. Okay. I'll need to verify your identity. Took 20 minutes. Questions about mother's maiden name, first pet, date the account was opened, but eventually the automatic transfer was canceled. As of December 1st, automatic transfers will be discontinued, the operator confirmed. Would you like to receive a written notification about the changes? Yes, please. As I hung up the phone, I felt strangely relieved. For the first time in years, I had made a decision that was all about me. Not Pierce, not Lucia, not their problems and needs. Just me. For 5 years and 10 months, I'd been paying for their house, thinking I was doing a good deed. And today, I found out that to them, I'm just a greedy old woman who doesn't want to share family assets. I found out that they sold my jewelry without remorse and spent the money on their own needs. Well, now they'll know what it's like to pay their own debts. In the evening, I sat in the living room with a cup of tea and looked at the family photos on the mantel. Pierce in kindergarten, Pierce with her first backpack, Pierce at her high school graduation, Pierce on his wedding day. In all the pictures, he's smiling, looking happy. When did he stop being that boy? Maybe he never stopped being that boy. Maybe I just didn't know him. Maybe the ability to steal from his mother and justify it with inheritance rights was always in him, just never had the right opportunity to show it before. The phone was silent. Pierce didn't call, didn't apologize, didn't try to make things right. So he really thinks he did the right thing, that he had the right to take my stuff without asking. Tomorrow they'll get a notice from the bank canceling the automatic transfer. A month from now, they'll get a mortgage bill they have no one to pay, and then we'll see how self-sufficient they are. I was no longer going to be an ATM for people who thought I was a burden. November was cold and rainy. Every morning I woke up at 7:30 as I always did, but now the day started differently. No anxious thoughts about what was going on in my son's life. No worries about his financial problems. I was freed from a burden I had been carrying for almost 6 years without even realizing the weight of it. For the first week after the automatic transfer was canceled, I waited for a call from Pierce. I thought he would notice that the money hadn't arrived in my mortgage account and call to find out what had happened. But the phone was silent. Apparently, he was so used to someone else paying for the house that he didn't even keep track of the receipts. Or maybe he just didn't want to talk to me after that scandal. Well, it was mutual. Time dragged slowly, but I found something to do. I sorted through old things, rereading letters from Gerald, organizing my papers. For the first time in years, I felt like I was living for myself, not to solve other people's problems. Mrs. Palmer, my neighbor, came in a couple of times for tea and conversation. She noticed I was looking better. "Rosemary, you look so rested," she said during one of her visits. "Did you go on vacation?" "No, just, relieved of some worries." "That's good. At our age, it's time to think about ourselves, not just the kids." She was right. All my life, I've spent my whole life thinking about my husband first, then my son, then his family. I never had time to think about myself, or seemed unimportant. 3 weeks after that memorable meeting with my son, I received a written notice from the bank that the automatic transfer had been canceled. Dry official wording, but to me, those lines meant freedom. I was no longer obligated to support adults who thought it was their right to do so. And another week later, early Tuesday morning, the phone rang. Pierce's number. I took my time picking it up, letting it ring once, then again, then again, then again. Finally, I answered it. "Hello?" "Mom!" My son sounded agitated, almost panicked. "Mom, we have a problem, a huge problem." "What's wrong, Pierce?" "We got a notice from the bank. They say we haven't paid our mortgage in a month, and now they're starting foreclosure proceedings." I listened silently as he choked on his words. I could hear the noise in the phone, Lucia's voice in the background. She was clearly panicked, too. "And what do you want me to do?" I asked calmly. "Like what?" "Help. Mom, they're only giving us 30 days to pay off the debt, and we don't have that kind of money. How much do you need?" 1,200 plus the fine? That's almost 1,500. "Mom, please help us out. We could lose our house." I paused to let him feel the pause. "Pierce, Have you ever wondered why the mortgage money stopped coming in all of a sudden? Well, I thought it was some kind of bank error, a glitch in the system. Mom, now is not the time to figure this out. We have to pay up now. There was no system glitch. I canceled the automatic transfer. Silence, a long, drawn out silence. You what? Pierce's voice got quieter, more uncertain. I canceled the automatic transfer on your mortgage a month ago. But, but why? Why did you steal my jewelry? Mom, it's different. Mortgages are serious. We could be evicted. My mother's jewelry is not serious. Family memorabilia is nothing. I could hear him breathing heavily. Lucia was saying something in the background, but I couldn't make out the words. Mom, you can't do this. You can't take away our home because of some jewelry. Some jewelry? Pierce, you sold a family heirloom and spent the money on your own, and now you want me to keep paying your debts. Don't you think that's a little strange? But we had a deal. You said you'd help with the mortgage. I said I'd help temporarily. Temporary, Pierce. That was almost 6 years ago. 6 years? What are you talking about? That I've been paying your mortgage since January 2020, $1,200 every month, 6 years in a row. Silence again. Longer. You paid the whole mortgage? Almost all of it. $130,000, Pierce. Maybe more. Yeah, I didn't know. You didn't know what? You're the one who asked me to make the transfer. But you said it was for a couple months. I thought you canceled it a long time ago. Did he really not know? Was he so uninterested in his own finances that he didn't realize where the money for the house payment was coming from? Pierce, did you really think you were paying your own mortgage on a locksmith's salary? Well, I thought we were saving money. Saving $1,500 a month on your income. He didn't say anything. I guess he finally realized the absurdity of the situation. So, all these years. He began uncertainly. All these years, I've been buying you a house, and you didn't even know it. Mom, I really didn't know. Lucia handled the finances. I brought in the paychecks, and she did the rest. Lucia knew? I don't know. I guess so. She looked over the paperwork, paid the bills. Of course she knew. I'm sure she knew from the beginning that I was paying for the house. And she kept quiet, letting my husband think they were doing it on their own while she spent my money on her own, including buying jewelry with money from the sale of the family jewels. Pierce, be honest with me. If you knew I was paying for the house, would you still take my jewelry? Long pause. Too long for an innocent answer. Mom, why are you asking me these questions? It's important to solve the problem with the bank right now. Answer the question. Yeah, probably not. I mean, I would have asked first. Would you, or wouldn't have taken it at all? Well, probably wouldn't have taken it. Probably. Even now, when it came out that I'd been supporting their family for 6 years, he couldn't answer definitively. All right, I said. Then here's a proposition. Give me the jewelry back and I'll resume my mortgage payments. Mom, but they're sold. I told you. Then buy the same ones. Find similar emerald earrings and a bracelet and we'll make a deal. But it's expensive. That kind of jewelry costs thousands of dollars. My house was worth $130,000. I think it's a fair trade. Mom, that's impossible. We don't have that kind of money. Then we don't have money for a mortgage. But we're a family. There was a note of desperation in her voice. A family should help each other. A family should respect each other. And respect starts with not taking things without asking. Mom, you can't do this. We could really end up on the street. Couldn't I have been left without the memory of my mother? It's different. Why are they different? Both are important to a person. I heard Lucia saying something to him in the background, clearly telling him what to say. Mom, what if we apologize? Publicly admit we were wrong. Apologizing won't bring back the jewelry. But we're truly sorry. Pierce, yesterday you called me a greedy old woman for not wanting to give you my possessions. How is that remorse? It was, that was just something I said in my heart. I didn't think it through. And you're not calling today to apologize. You're calling because you want my money again. Mom, what do you want? You want us to crawl on our knees? I want you to understand that I'm not an ATM. I don't have to solve your problems on my own dime. But you're a mother. Mothers help their children. Children should respect their mothers too, not steal their family heirlooms. All right, all right. He was clearly getting angry. What are we supposed to do now? Live on the street? Get a better job. Ask Lucia to get a job too. Ask her relatives for help. Take out a loan. There's lots of options. Mom, you know we can't afford a mortgage on our salary. Then sell the house and rent an apartment. Or buy something cheaper. Sell the house? You sounded panicked. But we've put so much into it. You invested? Or did I? Silence again. Mom, okay, fine. You invested. But this is our family home. A family home is bought with family money. This house was bought with my money. So, you're just kicking us out? I'm not kicking us out. I just stopped paying other people's debts. Other people's debts? Mom, I'm your son. The son who thinks my property is his. A son who steals family heirlooms and sees nothing wrong with it. What do you want me to do? You can't turn back time. I want you to learn to live on your own, without Mom's money. A long pause. Then Lucia's voice in the background, louder and angrier. Mom, Lucia wants to talk to you. I don't want to talk to Lucia, but she's... Pierce, tell your wife if she wants the house, she can pay for it herself. I hung up. 5 minutes later, the phone rang again. Pierce's number. I didn't answer it. Then it rang again. And again. In half an hour, it rang 12 times. I turned my phone off. When I turned it back on that evening, I saw 37 missed calls, all from Pierce, plus 3 voicemails. I listened to the first one. Mom, please answer the phone. We really have nowhere to go. We don't have money for a rental apartment. Mom, I know we were wrong, but are you really willing to leave us homeless? The second message was from Lucia. Rosemary, this is inhumane. We don't have that kind of money. You're condemning us to poverty over some jewelry. Think of your reputation. What will the neighbors say when they find out you threw your son out on the street? The third again from Pierce. Mom, I'm willing to do anything. Tell me what needs to be done, and I'll do it. But help me, please. I erased all the messages and turned my phone off again. Let them get used to the idea that their problems were their problems, not mine. The next few days passed in relative peace. I only turned my phone on for an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening to check on important calls. Pierce called every day, sometimes several times, but I didn't answer. He left voicemails, then begging, then accusing, then begging again. I didn't listen to them, just erased them. On Tuesday, the house phone rang, an unfamiliar number. I answered, thinking it was a doctor or some service. Rosemary Kettleborn? Female voice, young, nervous. Yes, I'm listening. This is Carol Fincher, Lucia's mother. I need to speak to you. Lucia's mother. We've only met a couple times. At the wedding and Pierce's birthday party a year ago. An unpleasant woman in her 50s who spent the entire evening complaining about her health and financial problems. Go ahead. Lucia told me about the situation. I think what you're doing is very cruel. It's your right to feel that way. The children have come to us for help, but we have no money. My husband lost his job. I'm on welfare. We can't give them $2,500. Neither can I. How can't you? You've got a big house. You must have money. Mrs. Fincher, your daughter sold my family jewels and spent the money on herself. After that, I don't feel obligated to help your family. But that's nothing. It's just a piece of jewelry. And people are homeless. If family heirlooms are nothing to you, then help the children yourself. I don't have that kind of money. You don't understand. Yes, I do. Just like you don't understand why Mom's jewelry was important to me. You can't be so heartless. They're young. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Couldn't they be honest and not steal? She was silent for a moment, searching for the right words. Rosemary, what if we could find you similar jewelry? Lucia says you've offered it. If you find emerald earrings and a bracelet from the 47th year, we'll talk. But that's impossible. Where would you find them? Then we have nothing to talk about. Look, why don't we make some other arrangement? The kids promised to help you with the housework regularly, or I don't need any help around the house. Then what do you want? I want to be left alone. She tried to talk me down for another 5 minutes, promising me that the kids would straighten up, that they'd never take what was mine without asking. But I was adamant. Finally, she hung up, calling me a callous, selfish woman. The next day, Lucia's aunt called. Then one of her cousins called, all with the same requests, to help the children, not to leave them without a home, to help them out, and all with the same incomprehension as to why some jewelry could be more important than human shelter. Apparently, Lucia mobilized the whole family, but none of them offered any concrete help. They all just asked me to solve the problem at my own expense. Friday, I met Mrs. Palmer on the street. She looked worried. Rosemary, are you all right? She asked. Just yesterday, I saw a man walking around your house, looking in the windows. A man? What did he look like? 35 years old, thin, scruffy. He was staggering around like a drunk. I tried to call the police, but he left. Pierce. So he came by the house while I was out. What was he looking for? Or was he just trying to see if I was home? Thanks for telling me. If you see him again, you better really call the police. Rosemary, are you having any problems with your son? He's been acting a little strange lately. I didn't go into detail, just said we were having a temporary disagreement. Mrs. Palmer nodded sympathetically. At her age, she must have known how difficult relationships with adult children could be. On Saturday, around noon, I was coming back from the store and saw a familiar car parked across the street from my house. Pierce was sitting behind the wheel, staring out my windows. He looked awful, unshaven, wearing a dirty shirt, eyes red. I parked in front of my house and got out of the car. Pierce got out too and walked toward me. His gait was unsteady, and he smelled like alcohol. Mom, finally! He got too close, and the smell of beer got even stronger. I've been waiting here for 3 hours. What do you want, Pierce? To talk. A real talk. No cell phone. We already talked. I gave my opinion. Mom, listen to me. He grabbed my sleeve. We only have 2 weeks left. If we don't pay, we'll be evicted. Let me go. Mom, I realized my mistake. I realized I was wrong. But are you really willing to leave me without a home because of this? I pulled my hand free and headed for the front door. Mom, stop. He ran after me. I'm sorry. What more do you want? Pierce, you're drunk. Go home and sober up. I'm not drunk. Well, I had a few drinks, but that's just nerves. I opened the door and went inside. Pierce tried to follow, but I quickly closed the door and locked it. Mom, he was banging on the door. Come on, open up. Let's talk to each other like human beings. Go home, Pierce. I'm not going home. I'm gonna stand here until you come out. I went into the living room and looked out the window. Pierce stood on the porch and kept knocking. Then he stepped away from the door and sat down on the steps, took out his cell phone and dialed a number. My home phone rang. Mom, I know you're home. Open the door. Go home or I'll call the police. The police? On your own son? On a drunk man who's disturbing my peace? Mom, come on. I'm not being violent. I just want to talk. You can only talk to sober people. All right. I'll sober up. I'll stay here and wait. And he did stay. He sat on the porch steps and just sat there. Sometimes he'd get up, walk around the yard, then sit down again. Every once in a while he'd call me, begging me to come out. Toward evening, I couldn't take it anymore and called the police. Two officers came, talked to Pierce. He explained to them that it was his mother and he just wanted to talk to her. The police asked him to leave the area, but did not arrest him. Technically, he was not doing anything illegal. Pierce left, but he came back the next day, and the next day too. Every day he would come to my house and sit in the car or on the porch for hours, waiting for me to come out, calling several times a day, leaving messages. By the middle of the week, the voicemails had changed. Whereas before he had begged and pleaded, now he began to accuse. Mom, this is inhumane, to ruin your son's life because of some jewelry. What will people say when they find out you kicked me out on the street? A mother is supposed to help her children, but you're acting like a stranger, like I'm not your son. Mom, I'm getting depressed. I don't sleep. I don't eat. Lucia says I'm sick, and you don't care. The last message was particularly unpleasant. Okay, you don't want to help. Don't. But when I get drunk or do something to myself, remember that you drove me to this. Blackmail. Crude, primitive blackmail. My son is threatening suicide to get money out of me. On Thursday, he came in particularly drunk. He could barely stand on his feet. His speech was slurred. I looked at him from the window and didn't recognize my child. When did he turn into this pathetic creature? When did alcohol become a way for him to solve his problems? I remembered how as a child he was afraid of drunk people on the street. He would cross to the other side if he saw a drunken crowd. Mom, why are uncles so strange? He'd ask. And now he became one of those uncles himself. Mom, he'd yell, standing in the middle of the yard. Come out. I'm not leaving anyway. I'll stay here all night. The neighbors were already starting to look out the windows. Mrs. Palmer came out on the porch and looked anxiously in our direction. I felt ashamed of the sight. I went out on the porch. Pierce, go home, now. Ah, Mommy's finally out. He swayed, barely able to stand. Let's talk, Mommy. What's there to talk about with a drunk? I'm not drunk. It's just nerves. You see, Mother, I'm nervous. Because of you. Pierce, you brought this on yourself. Yeah? He laughed, but it was an evil laugh. Did I steal jewelry from myself? Did I rob myself of my home? You stole my jewelry, and you spend your money on alcohol instead of finding solutions to your problems. Problem solving? He took a few tentative steps in my direction. What can I solve? My salary is $800. 800, motherfucker? You can't buy a house with that money. Then don't buy a house. Rent an apartment. Why should I rent an apartment when I got a rich mom? Because your rich mom doesn't have to support you. Yes, she does. He raised his voice. You gave birth to me. Then you have to help me. I helped you for 20 years while you were growing up. Then I helped you for 6 more years, paying your mortgage. That's enough. That's not enough. I'm your son, your only child. Who else are you going to leave your money to? It's my money, and I decide how I spend it. And I decide to claim mine. Yours? I felt anger rising up inside of me. What's yours, Pierce? What you've earned? What right do you have to claim it? The right of a son. He stepped closer, and I could smell the pungent odor of booze. The right of a man who's been a good son all his life. Good sons don't steal from their mothers. And good mothers don't abandon their children when they're in trouble. What kind of trouble? The trouble you created for yourself? Fuck you, he exploded. You sit here in your palace counting pennies, and I want to die. He turned and walked to the car, staggering from side to side. He sat behind the wheel and tried unsuccessfully several times to start the engine. I wondered if I should call the police. He obviously shouldn't be driving like that. But the car finally started, and Pierce drove off, barely keeping in his lane. I went back to the house feeling shattered. My son is turning into an alcoholic. Instead of looking for a better job or other ways to cope, he's drowning his sorrows in alcohol and blames it on me. What did I do wrong? Where did I go wrong? Maybe I should have made him live on his own sooner, not help with the mortgage, not lend him money, or the other way around. Maybe I didn't love him enough, didn't support him enough, but all my life I've done everything I could for him. I've worked double shifts so he'd never need anything. I paid for his education, his wedding, his house, and as a result, I raised a man who thinks he's entitled to my property, who steals family heirlooms and sees nothing wrong with it, who gets drunk when he doesn't get what he wants. Late that night, the phone rang again. Pierce's number. I didn't bother answering, but then I listened to the message. Mom, I'm sick. I'm really sick. I don't know what to do. Help me, please. His voice was quite drunk, the words barely audible. There was some noise at the end. Then the connection went dead. I sat with the phone in my hands and thought, what if something really happened to him? What if he did something stupid while drunk? Would I be able to live with the thought that I could have prevented a tragedy? But then I remembered how he called me a greedy old woman, how Lucia spent my jewelry money on her own jewelry, how they both thought it was okay to steal from me and demand more. No, I'm not responsible for their choices, for choosing to drink instead of work, for choosing to demand other people's money instead of earning their own. I turned my phone off and went to bed. Monday began with silence. For the first time in 2 weeks, Pierce didn't call in the morning, didn't come to the house, didn't leave messages. I was almost used to his constant attempts at contact, and the sudden silence seemed suspicious. Had something happened, or was he just really drunk and unable to function? By lunchtime, curiosity took over, and I decided to drive by their house, not to go in, just to see if everything was okay. After all, as mad as I was at Pierce, he was still my son. As I parked across the street, I saw that Pierce's car was parked in the driveway, but it looked strange. One door ajar, some stuff scattered in the back seat. There were empty bottles lying around in the yard, and a bag of trash on the porch that clearly hadn't been taken out in days. The house looked abandoned, though it was obvious there were people inside. The light in the living room was on, and voices were coming from the open window. Loud, angry voices. I opened the car window ajar so I could hear better. Pierce and Lucia were arguing, and it was raging. Drunk again, Lucia was yelling. Instead of looking for money, you're sitting in a bar. Where am I supposed to look for money? Replied Pierce, his voice hoarse and tired. You see, your mother isn't helping. Your mother, can't you do anything yourself? All you know how to do is whine. I'm working. I work 8 hours a day. For a pittance, and you drink half of it. You think I don't know how much you spend at the Golden Anchor? The Golden Anchor is a local bar near the factory, cheap place where the workers used to drink their paychecks. So Pierce has become a regular. So what do I do? Pierce sounded almost childlike. My mom won't talk. I can't get a decent job. My house is being repossessed. Try not drinking. Try thinking with your head. Maybe then you'll think of something. Easy for you to say. What have you thought of? Besides running to my in-laws, at least my relatives don't throw us out on the street. Unlike your precious mommy. Don't talk about my mom like that. What should I say? She's kicking us out of the house because of some iron. It's not hardware. It's, it was important to her. Important? Lucia's voice got even higher. Aren't we important? Your family isn't important? Important, but no buts. A normal mother would help. And yours sits in her palace and counts pennies. I listened to the conversation and marveled at how quickly Lucia had shifted the responsibility to me. It was she who insisted on stealing the jewels, she who sold them, she who spent the money on her own needs. But of course I'm to blame. Maybe we should have done things differently, Pierce suddenly said. Maybe we shouldn't have taken the jewelry without asking. Are you defending her? I'm not defending her. I'm just, thinking. What if she's right? What if what we did was really bad? Bad? Lucia was outraged. We took something that was ours anyway. What should have been yours? But not now, and not without asking. When? After she's dead? Do I have to wait until I'm 90? Lucia, don't say that. I'll say what I want. Your mother is selfish. She sits alone in a big house with lots of money and won't help us. She did. She's been paying the mortgage for 6 years. What did we ask for? She offered. I did, temporarily. So what? If she did, she could have. And now she's playing the victim. A pause. Then Pierce's voice, quieter and more uncertain. What if we tried to find a better job? Or would you go to work? Work? Lucia laughed, but it was an angry laugh. What would I do? I have no education, no experience. Well, in a store, as a waitress, for minimum wage, to stand on my feet all day for a penny? What else can we do? Put pressure on your mother. Show her we're serious. What kind of pressure? I've been going to see her for 2 weeks. You're drunk. Of course she won't listen to you. Who would listen to a drunk? I'm not a drunk. You're not? What then? Yesterday you came home drunk. Today you're hungover. It's from nerves. You see, my nerves can't take it. Do I have nerves? You think it's easy for me? But I don't get drunk every day. You don't understand. It's my mother. All my life I thought she loved me. Love? What love? If she loved me, she'd help me. Maybe we did it wrong from the start. What's wrong? We took what's ours, not ours, hers, yours. You're her son, so all her goods will be yours sooner or later. But not now. Why not now? Is she going to take it to her grave, or will she bequeath it to a museum? I shuddered. That's exactly right. I'd actually thought about bequeathing most of the estate to a museum or a charitable foundation. I don't know. Pierce said tiredly. Maybe he will. Exactly. What are we, fools? Are we just going to wait for her to give everything away? Lucia, why do you say that? What do you mean? The truth. Your mother doesn't love you. If she did, she wouldn't throw you out on the street. She doesn't. She's just, resentful. Hurt. Lucia snorted. Offended by what? That we took what was ours? That we took it without asking. Would she have given it to you if you'd asked? Pierce was quiet. Probably not. Exactly. So what's the difference? There is a difference. It's one thing to say no, it's another to steal. We didn't steal. We took the family's. Lucia, enough. Pierce raised his voice for the first time in this conversation. Stop making excuses. We stole. We took someone else's without asking. And now we're paying for it. Someone else's? Lucia's voice became dangerously quiet. So I'm a stranger to you? Your wife is a stranger? It's not you who's a stranger. It's the jewelry. It wasn't yours. Whose was it? Your mom's? Who am I? I'm not family. Family, but no buts. If I'm family jewelry. And family property is family property. Not the whole family. It belongs to whoever owns it. It belongs to you. You're the heir. after she dies. And before her death, what? To die of poverty? They went round and round, repeating the same arguments. Lucia was adamant that she was entitled to my property, and Pierce, for the first time, was beginning to have doubts. Look, he said after a long pause, what if we really tried it another way? What other way? Well, we apologize, explain that we realized our mistake. What good would that do? Maybe Mom will soften. Maybe it'll help. She clearly said to give the jewelry back. Well, maybe we can find some that look like it. What for? We don't even have money for food. We'll take out a loan. With what? We have no collateral. The house is about to be foreclosed. Then, then I don't know. Well, I do. Lucia's voice became determined. We have to get tough. Harder how? Threaten her with something. Threaten her with what? Well, that she'll never see her grandchildren again. What grandchildren? We're not planning on having kids. She doesn't know that. Let her think she's losing her future grandchildren. Lucia, it's blackmail. So what? She's blackmailing us. Either the jewelry or the house. She's not blackmailing us. She just doesn't want to support us. Why doesn't she want to? Because she's greedy. Or because we stole from her. There you go again. Lucia was clearly getting angry. How many times? We didn't steal anything. We took what was ours. All right, Pierce said tiredly. Let's say you took what was yours. What's next? Mother's not helping anyway. Still no money. What do we do? Find other ways. How? Well, we could move into her house. What? After the eviction. Say we can't live anywhere else. Let her take us in. Lucia, are you crazy? She won't even let us in. Where will she go? We're her children. I'm her son, and you're not. I'm her son's wife. That's family, too. After everything that happened, after we sold her jewelry, all the more reason. Let her see what her actions led to. As I listened to these plans, I felt goosebumps creep up my spine. Lucia was seriously considering moving into my house by force. After the theft, after the insults, she planned to become my neighbor. Lucia, that's impossible. Pierce said, My mother won't let us in the house. Yes, she will, if we show her we really have nowhere else to go. No, she won't. I know her. I know her too. She's old and lonely. Deep down, she wants someone to be there for her. Not after what we've done. Time heals. We live with her, show her we're good, and she'll forgive us. And if she doesn't? She will. Where can she go? We're the only family she's got. Pierce was silent for a long time. Then he said quietly, You know, your mother was right. Right about what? We did act like thieves. Pierce? Pierce what? The truth. We came in when she wasn't here, took her stuff without asking, sold it, and spent the money. What's that called? It's called taking what's yours. No, Lucia, it's called stealing. You're betraying me. I'm telling the truth. We stole our mother's jewelry, and now we wonder why she's mad at us. So, you're on her side? I'm not on anyone's side. I just realized we were wrong. I was right. Lucia's voice got hysterical. You would have gotten the jewelry anyway. We just took it a little sooner. A little earlier? 30 years earlier? Maybe Mom wanted to wear it herself. Maybe she wanted to give it to her granddaughter. What granddaughter? We won't have children. She didn't know that. Now she does. What's changed? Nothing's changed, Pierce said tiredly. We're still thieves, and Mom's still right. There was silence, a long, heavy silence. Then Lucia spoke again, but her voice was different, cold, calculating. All right, if you think you're a thief, then answer like one. I'll have no part in this. What do you mean? That's what I mean. It was your idea to steal the jewelry. My idea? Pierce was shocked. You were the one who insisted. You're the one who said it was family. And you said yes. You took them. I wasn't even in the house. Lucia, what are you saying? I'm telling the truth. If it comes to court, I'll say you made it all up, and I only found out later. Are you leaving me? I'm saving myself. It's one thing to live with a loser. It's another to live with a thief. I heard the door slam, then the sound of footsteps on the gravel. Lucia left the house and headed for the neighbor's fence, where her friend probably lived. She walked quickly, determinedly, like a person who had made a final decision. And from the house came another sound, the sound of a bottle being opened. Pierce was alone, alone with his problems, his guilt, and his alcohol. And for the first time in a while, he began to realize what he had done. The next few days were spent in suspense. I didn't know what was going on at Pierce's house after that fight with Lucia, but I suspected it was nothing good. He stopped calling, stopped coming to my house, and the silence was more disturbing than his previous obsessive attempts at contact. Mrs. Palmer came in for tea on Wednesday night and mentioned in passing that she'd seen some woman yesterday taking things out of Pierce's house and loading them into her car. Pretty, dark-haired, she said, stirring the sugar in her cup. She took out a lot of boxes. Maybe they're moving somewhere? Lucia. I guess she wasn't kidding about saving herself. Dumped Pierce at the worst possible moment and moved out. Probably back to that friend or her parents. Or maybe she found a new man who seemed more promising. I don't know, I said to Mrs. Palmer. My son and I are going through a difficult time. I understand, dear. Relationships with children at our age are often difficult. They grow up. They have their own lives, their own problems. If she only knew what those problems were. On Friday morning, the letter carrier brought a registered letter. The sender's address was unfamiliar, but the name seemed familiar. Baxter, a law firm. Inside was a brief notice that Mr. Pierce Kettleborn was requesting an appointment to discuss family matters and a possible settlement. Attorney. Pierce had hired a lawyer. Apparently, he's decided to go all the way and try to get access to my assets through the courts, or make me pay his debts. I called the office and made an appointment for the following Monday. Mr. Baxter turned out to be a young man in his 30s who spoke cautiously and streamlined. Mrs. Kettleborn, your son has come to us for counseling, he explained. But I have to be honest, he has no legitimate reason to ask you for financial assistance. Then why did he come to you? He was hoping we could find some kind of compromise, family mediation, so to speak. What kind of compromise? Well, he's willing to publicly apologize for the jewelry incident in exchange for renewed mortgage assistance. And you think that's a fair offer? Mr. Baxter was quiet. Frankly, no. After counseling, I explained to your son that theft is theft, even if it's family jewelry, and that no one can force you to support a grown man. What did he say? He said he'd think about it, and he never showed up again. So the attempt to solve the problem through the law failed. What's Pierce gonna do now? The answer came on Saturday. I was coming back from the supermarket and saw a familiar car parked outside my house. But this time, Pierce wasn't behind the wheel. He was standing on the porch, leaning against a pillar, and he looked terrible, skinny, unshaven, in dirty clothes. But most importantly, he looked sober. His eyes were clear, his movements crisp, and there was an expression on his face that I hadn't seen in weeks. Shame. Mom, he said as I approached the porch, can we talk? Talk about what, Pierce? About what I've done, about how to fix it. I opened the door and walked through the house. He followed me in, but stopped in the hallway, hesitant to go any further. Mom, I get it. I realized I was wrong. Realized what? That Lucia and I stole your jewelry. That it was a theft, not a taking of family property. I went into the kitchen and put the kettle on. Pierce stayed standing in the doorway. What's next? I asked without turning around. I want to remedy the situation. How? I don't know yet, but I'll find a way. I'll pay you back the cost of the jewelry. I'll find similar ones. I'll figure something out. With what money? I'll get a better job. I'll get 2 jobs. Stop drinking. I turned to him. He did look determined. And Lucia? Lucia left 2 weeks ago. Said she didn't want to live with a loser. And how are you feeling? Bad, but, lighter, to be honest. She kept demanding that I do something against you. Said you had an obligation to help us. What do you think? He paused, looking down at the floor. I don't think I do. That I'm an adult and I should be responsible for my own life. Where did you get that idea? Lucia explained something to me before she left. She said that if it went to court, she'd claim I was the one who stole the jewelry, that she didn't know anything. And you believed her? What's not to believe? That's exactly what happened. I'm the one who went to your house. I'm the one who took the case. I took the jewelry to the fence. At her insistence. It doesn't matter. I did it with my hands. The water was boiling. I made tea, poured 2 cups. I put one on the table in front of me and slid the other to Pierce. Sit down. He hesitantly sat down across from me. Mom, I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but give me a chance to make it up to you. What do you want? Time? Can you hold off on the eviction? Not make the payment, but not let the bank take the house? Until I find a way to make money? Pierce, the bank has its own rules. I can't tell them what to do. But you can pay it and then collect on it, officially through the courts if necessary. I looked at my son, the thin face, the faded eyes, the hands shaking from fatigue or alcohol withdrawal. He looked like a man who had hit rock bottom and only now realized where he was. And if you can't make money, then I'll sell the house and pay you back what I can. Where will you live? I'll get a room or buy something cheaper. Why didn't you think of that before? Because I'm used to you being there for me. Took it for granted. Honest answer, painfully honest. Pierce, do you realize there's no way to get the jewelry back? That the fence has already melted it down or sold it? I do. And I realize I've hurt you. Not just financially, but also heartache. Destroyed your grandmother's memory. How are you going to make up for that? I don't know. I guess I can't. Some things can't be undone. We sat in silence, drinking tea. It was starting to rain outside the window, and the drops were drumming on the glass. It was the same weather I remembered the day my mother handed me the jewelry. Gray skies, drizzling rain, and her words that family traditions should continue. Pierce, I finally said, if I paid for the house now, what guarantees you wouldn't blow all the money you make? Nothing guarantees it, just my word, which has already been broken. Yes, which has already been broken. Then why should I take the risk? You shouldn't, not at all. I'm asking for a favor, not a right. What's the difference? A favor is something you don't have to do. You can't fail to recognize a right. He was beginning to understand. He was finally beginning to understand the difference between a request and a demand, between a favor and a duty. What happens if I say no? I'll give you an example. Sell the house for debt, move to rented accommodation, try to make a life for myself. No complaints, no accusations of cruelty or callousness. No complaints. I got up and went to the window. The rain was getting heavier, turning into a downpour. People were hurrying down the street under umbrellas, trying to get to a dry place as quickly as possible. Pierce, do you remember what I told you about Grandma's earrings? I do. Grandpa got them for my silver wedding anniversary. Grandma only wore them on holidays. What did I say about tradition? That jewelry should be passed down from mother to daughter, or daughter-in-law if there's no daughter. Did you think about that when you took it? No, I only thought about the money. And Lucia? Lucia said traditions are nonsense, that it's living people that matter, not dead memories. And you agreed with her. I did. Now I realize I was wrong. I turned to him. Pierce, even if I helped you now, what would change? You still consider my estate to be your future inheritance. No, I don't. It's your property. You can dispose of it however you want. What if I leave it all to the museum? That's your right. What if I leave it to a charity? That's your right, too. You won't mind? I'd be upset, but I won't mind. I went back to the table and sat across from my son. Okay, one last question. Why do you want this house? Why do you need this mortgage that you can't afford? I don't know. I guess for prestige. I wanted to live a nice life, like successful people. And now? Now I realize that it's better to live modestly on my own money than beautifully on someone else's. Do you understand, or are you saying what I want to hear? I understand. I do. I stared into his eyes for a long time, trying to see if he was sincere. The man who had called me a greedy old woman a month ago was now sitting in front of me, apologizing. The man who thought my property was his was now recognizing my rights to it. But could he be trusted? Or was it just desperation that made it the right thing to say? Mom, he said quietly, I don't expect you to help me. I just wanted to tell you that I realized my mistakes and that I'm ashamed of what I did. Ashamed of stealing or of getting caught. Stealing. For betraying your trust. For destroying your grandmother's memory. And for making me pay for your house for 6 years. That too. Although I really didn't know about that until recently. But now you do. Now I do. And I realize you've done more for me than you've ever done for me. We were silent again. The rain outside the window was fading into a light drizzle. Somewhere in the house, a clock ticked, counting down the seconds of our conversation. Pierce, I said finally, I'm not going to help you. He nodded without looking up. I understand. You have to learn to live on your own. No mom's money, no mom's support. I understand. And if you're truly remorseful, then prove it by doing something. Get a job, get a place to live, make a life for yourself. I'll do my best. And then, if you can try to find similar jewelry. Not the same. They don't have it anymore. But similar, in memory of my grandmother. He looked up. Is that a condition? No, it's a task of your own, if you want it. I will, I will. He got up from the table. Mom, can I give you a hug? You can. He hugged me tentatively, and I felt him shiver. Cold, excitement, desperation, I don't know. But that hug felt like the first honest gesture I'd seen in weeks. Thank you for listening, he said. Pierce, I want you to know that I love you. But love doesn't mean I'm going to solve your problems. I know, and I love you too, even though I've been bad at showing it. He left, and I sat in the kitchen with my tea getting cold. The sun was peeking through the window, and the wet trees glistened in its rays. For the first time in weeks, talking to my son didn't leave a bitter residue. He finally realized what he had done, finally admitted his guilt. But would it help him? Could he really turn his life around? Or will he come back after a while with pleas and excuses? Time will tell. In the meantime, I was free from having to support him. After Pierce left, I sat in the kitchen for a long time, staring at the 2 cups on the table. One empty, the other almost full. My son had only had a few sips. Even that was symbolic. He took what was offered but didn't truly appreciate it. After washing the dishes, I went into the living room and sat in the chair by the window. The same chair where I liked to read in the evenings, where I thought about the past and made plans for the future. I had some important decisions to make today. First of all, I opened the secretary and took out the folder with the will. The document had been drawn up 5 years ago, shortly after Gerald's death, and it left my entire estate to Pierce. It had seemed natural at the time. Who else should I leave my life savings to but my only child? But a lot has changed in those 5 years. My son turned into a man who treated my property as his own, who could steal family heirlooms and justify it with inheritance rights, who lived off my money for 6 years without even realizing it. No, a man like that didn't deserve my inheritance. I called Harrison, the lawyer who drew up the will. We made an appointment for Wednesday of the following week. I had to go over everything, draw up a new document. In the meantime, I decided to get my paperwork in order, sort through all the documents, and figure out exactly what I owned. Over the years of living together with my husband and then years of loneliness, I had accumulated a lot of folders, certificates, contracts. It was time to systematize this wealth. Bank documents showed a pleasant picture. On the savings account lay $87,000. The investment portfolio was valued at $120,000, plus the house, which was now worth at least $300,000. The neighborhood had become prestigious in recent years, more than $500,000. Not bad for a nurse's widow. In a separate folder was the paperwork for the automatic transfers on Pierce's mortgage. I scrutinized the statements and calculated the exact amount, $134,800. Nearly a third of my fortune had gone to pay for a house I'd never lived in. If that money had stayed with me, I could have traveled, upgraded my interior, bought a new car, or just live in peace knowing I was provided for in my old age. Instead, I was supporting a family that took it for granted. Next came the deeds to the house. Gerald had deeded it to both of us, and when he died, I became the sole owner. A big house on a quiet street with a garden and a garage. Too big for one woman, but full of memories. This is where my husband and I spent our best years. This is where Pierce grew up. It's where I experienced grief after Gerald's death and slowly learned to live alone. Every room held the story of our family. But now that history seemed bitter. The boy we had raised in love and care had grown into a man capable of stealing from his mother. The family we had built had fallen apart because of greed and disrespect. Maybe we should have sold the house and moved to a smaller apartment, start a new life in a new place with no reminders of the past. I stood up and walked through the rooms, assessing them with fresh eyes. The bedroom where Gerald and I had spent 20 happy years, the nursery, which later became Pierce's teenage room, my husband's study with his books and photographs, the guest room where rare guests stayed, really too much space for one person, and too many memories that now hurt. But on the other hand, why should I change my life because of someone else's actions? Why should I give up the home I love, the garden I planted myself, the way of life I've grown accustomed to? No, I shouldn't have run away. It was better to stay here and finally start living for myself. In the evening, I made a list of the things I wanted to change in my will. I decided to leave the bulk of my estate, the house and most of my savings, to the local history museum. Let the town have a cultural center named after Gerald Kettleborn. My husband loved history, and he would approve. Some of the money was to go to a fund to help the elderly. Too many people my age suffer from loneliness and poverty. Too many are victimized by the greed of their own children. I was leaving Pierce a token amount of $10,000, enough so that he couldn't contest the will, claiming he'd been forgotten, but not enough so he could continue to live on my money. In the will, I planned to explain my decision, to write that the son is disinherited because he stole family valuables and disrespected his mother. Let him know that actions have consequences. The next day, I decided to tackle the house. If I'm going to live here for the rest of my life, I should make the place more comfortable for an elderly person. Maybe install handrails in the bathroom, improve the lighting, update the furniture. I started by taking apart the closets. In the bedroom, I found Gerald's things that I'd been hesitant to throw away. Suits, shirts, ties, all neatly hung, as if he were about to return. For 5 years, I couldn't bring myself to part with it, but now I realized it was time. I put it all in boxes for charity. It would serve someone better than hanging dead in my closet. My husband's office was more difficult. History books, documents of his research, photos of the digs where he volunteered after retirement. It was his passion, his second calling. It seemed sacrilegious to throw such things away. I decided to keep the most precious things for the museum. Let his work become part of the exposition, and the rest could be given to the university library. As I was sorting through my desk drawers, I came across a photograph I hadn't seen in years. Gerald and little Pierce fishing. The son is about 6 years old, laughing, showing a tiny fish on a hook. Gerald hugs him, and both look immensely happy. Where is that boy? When did a laughing child turn into a man capable of stealing from his mother? What did we do wrong? Or is it just life? People change, not always for the better. I stared at the photograph for a long time, then put it away in a separate box. These were memories I wanted to keep, even if they hurt. By evening, the house looked different, more spacious, less cluttered, as if I'd cleared it of the past and was preparing it for a new phase of life. Over dinner, I made a plan for the next few months. Meeting with a lawyer to change my will, renovating the bathroom to make it more comfortable, perhaps a trip somewhere. It had been a long time since I'd traveled anywhere farther than a neighboring town. I also wanted to find a hobby, maybe sign up for an art class or a language class. At 70, it's not too late to start something new, especially when you don't have to spend time and energy solving other people's problems. Mrs. Palmer told me that the local library has a book club for seniors. They meet once a week, discuss what they've read, socialize. Maybe I should join. For too long, I had been focused on my family and had forgotten about my own interests. In the evening, I called an old friend, Ellen, whom I hadn't spoken to in almost a year. We worked together at the hospital, but after retirement, we rarely saw each other. Rosemary, Ellen was delighted. What a pleasant surprise. How are you? Good. Hélène, do you remember when you suggested we go to Europe? Of course I remember. You said you couldn't leave home for long. I can now. If it's still on the table, I'd like to come along. Really? Ellen didn't hide her surprise. What's changed? I've changed. I've decided it's time to live for myself. We talked for over an hour, discussing possible itineraries. Italy, France, maybe Greece. Ellen suggested an organized tour, but I like the idea of traveling on my own. Planning it ourselves, staying where we like, not depending on the group's schedule. What about your family? Ellen asked. Would Pierce be okay with that? Pierce is a grown man now, and he can handle his own problems. I see. Were there problems? They were, but they've been resolved. I didn't go into detail. Ellen was a good person, but she liked to gossip, and I didn't want the jewelry story to become the talk of the town. Before I went to bed, I went through the house one more time, planning the changes. Put a new reading chair here. Renew the curtains there. In the garden, a bed of low-maintenance perennials. The house had to be comfortable for me, not for guests. Not for family gatherings that would no longer happen, but for a woman who had finally decided to think about her own comfort. In the bedroom, I stopped in front of the mirror. Gray hair, wrinkles around my eyes, weariness in my facial features. 70 is an age when many people consider life almost over, but I felt liberated, ready for a new beginning. No more having to support anyone, no more worrying about other people's debts, no more justifying my decisions to people who saw me only as a source of money. I was free. Tomorrow a new life would begin, a life for myself, and let Pierce learn to deal with his problems on his own. Maybe it'll be good for him, maybe it won't, but that's not my responsibility anymore. I turned out the light and went to bed, feeling surprisingly calm. For the first time in months, sleep came quickly and without nightmares.